What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Logic Bomb Podcast, episode 31. And you're stuck with just the two of us. Me and Alex today. We don't have a guest for you. And we wanted to give you a friendly reminder down below there of how much we miss Pete. So shout out to Pete. It's been a couple episodes now since we haven't had him and we miss him. So I'm sure you guys do too. We've seen you guys in the comments. But with that said, we're gonna go over obviously the Operation Shadow Legacy drop. That dropped kind of surprisingly last Thursday. I think it's the first time we've ever had a season drop on a Thursday that I can remember. So we've been able to actually see the season roll out, and we have some opinions on that. We've also been watching the second phase of NA Pro League started last night. Both of us watched that, and there were some pretty entertaining matches there. And yeah, I guess beyond that, a few other notes that we have here. As far as the Shachanka rework has been spotted in the game, surprisingly. And yeah, so I guess let's start out with the new season. You good with that?
Yeah, let's do it. I mean, we're gonna rant a little here. Let's be fair. So I think it's good we don't have a guest on because yeah, this is, don't get me wrong, this is the single best patch, and I know we're gonna get all the Ubi shield blah blah. Like I was so excited for this patch with all the content that was coming, and yet it has been the worst release I've seen so far. And I know that might sound extreme, but the amount of things that just didn't work the way they should. The launch, why like that? It was messy. It was confusing. I don't know. Maybe you can pretend like because it's Sam Fisher and it's stealthy that it was, all of a sudden released. It was weird. I don't get why they would do it that way. I think it's better to build hype up for it. Sure, we get to play some test server, and maybe people aren't as excited about jumping into it once you've played it for a couple of weeks in test server, but it doesn't justify releasing it like that. Now, if you combine all the other things, because I can live with bugs. Bugs are fine. They're going to be there. They're going to get... We move on. But having half of your games with people needing to restart and reconnect because of reversed audio, that sucks. I have luckily not had it once, but I've played 50 ranked games already this season, and I have probably seen about 100 reconnects, if not more.
Oh yeah.
Every single map, more or less, I have one guy from my stack that has to restart. Often from the other stack as well. Match cancellation has been abused through the roof in the games we've played. Cheaters are rampant. I understand that new season there is automatically going to be more cheaters because they get to test stuff on test servers, right? Like they get to be ready for it as well. Or maybe they don't even use it on test servers and they just run it in the start of the season to see how long it goes before they get caught. But I met the same one cheater like 3 times over 3 days. It's a little too slow, especially when it's that visible. It's people walking around hip firing you with a Monty Black Ice shield, right? And that goes on to all the spoiled stuff that probably pisses me off the most. All of these things that we should be able to be excited for and unwrap ourselves are getting shoved down our throat like Shachanka, right? I'm sure you and I might sometimes get to see some stuff and play things or test things or hear stuff that isn't public, but having something run around in game that you don't yet have tried or seen or know much about, there is no way that isn't the worst spoil. I put an overlay on when it happened to us on stream just because I don't want it to be full spoiled for everyone else, but it's on Twitter everywhere, right?
Yeah. I've even seen some YouTubers uploading the content, which why isn't Ubisoft striking those videos?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think they should. I think they should be harder on it in general as well. I don't know. Did you read the article about Activision and what they did?
with the cheaters.
with the private
Yeah.
investigator showing
Yep.
up at the cheat developer's house and knocking on
Hmm.
his front door with his full name.
Yeah.
Um, I think stories like those are pretty good because it makes people sit down and think, nah, we're not gonna mess with them. And I'm sure they're probably doing stuff in the background. I'm sure they're taking legal action. Like we've seen it already. There's at least two like cases that have been filed, and those are public record. You can go in and look them up, right? Um, and sure, it takes long. Of course it does. I have full understanding of that. But there's a little bit of a lack of transparency when it comes to that stuff. With why do we have to deal with it so much in the start of seasons? I'm not sure if there's a new magic way that these guys are doing it or what's happening. And on the other hand, some of this is 100% like it's not the victim blaming stuff with it's Ubi's fault that people are doing it. It isn't. People are shitty people and they do it because they're shitty people. But
Right.
if it's in the game and you can somehow data mine it and find it, then even if they aren't running around in ranked games with Elite Shachanka shooting fireballs at everyone, they could still post it.
Yeah.
And we've seen this happen pretty much almost every season. Elites get leaked. Some of them didn't though. Like I think Thatcher never got leaked. That was nice, impressive, right? Like more hype when you don't get to see them leaked before. So there has been some things that weren't leaked, but like this isn't a small thing. This is like
Right.
one. This is the biggest. This is the biggest rework of anything in Siege ever. Is Tachenka rework, right? Like that was supposed to be such a goddamn hype moment, and now, like he could come out tomorrow, and I'd be like, yeah, nice.
Well, yeah, exactly. I think that the rollout of the Tachanka rework had the potential to be one of the coolest moments we've ever seen in Rainbow Six Siege.
Yep.
And it will not. It just is not going to land like that now. Back to what I'm saying about like the YouTubers putting the video up. Like if there's a YouTube video out there and it's titled "Cheaters Leaking Tachanka Rework in-game footage," that YouTuber is number one acknowledging that they are uploading leaked content that wasn't intended to be in the game, which is pretty much self-admission that it's. I don't know. I would think that there would be grounds to strike that video and remove it. I've heard of Activision removing leaked footage and striking YouTube channels for having leaked footage before. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess if it's actually in game, can you consider it stolen? Maybe that's a loophole. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, every season it happens, man. And like, okay, so one thing. Does this mean that the Tachanka rework is going to be rolled out mid-season? Because usually when the elites are leaked at the beginning of the season, it's because those elites are coming during that season. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably just like it's in game to make it so you can release it when you want to release. You have it ready, so another big patch doesn't have to hit. But I think if it's probably more a mistake than anything because there's no way. I refuse to believe that they are gullible enough that they could leave this in and no one would find it. It has to be a mistake that it's there.
Yeah.
Right?
I
Like
think
that should have come out later. This isn't the first time it's happened. Right?
yeah,
It's
right.
happened every single time. So if you have something as big as this, like I couldn't care less if Monty's Black Eye skin for the shield gets right. Like okay, cool. We know that comes at some point someday. Fair enough. But Shachanka leaked in game and actually seeing people play him, that bothers the hell out of me.
Especially the cheaters. The ones who are playing them are
Yeah,
cheaters, right?
yeah,
That's like even more like that's like insult to injury right there.
yeah. And then they get all this limelight by people getting excited about seeing it, which I understand. But all of a sudden, like people are literally stopping playing just to watch this cheater show them stuff, right?
Yeah.
If that isn't the worst way to reveal something, I don't know what is. And frankly, I don't think an explanation or an excuse is even necessary because it doesn't matter why it happened. It shouldn't.
And if it had never happened before, it would be like, okay, it was a mistake. You know, it happens.
Sure.
It happens every season.
Yeah.
And it's
then
never
you take that
happened with anything this important because it's always been elites before, but it happens every season. So that's why I'm so disappointed by it. Is like,
and leaks piss me off, man.
yeah,
Seeing them on Twitter, I mute and block people the second I see leaks shared because I don't want it spoiled. I don't want someone else to unwrap my Christmas present.
yeah,
And if we ever get to go and test anything, I feel a little less excited about playing it when it comes out because you know what's coming. I would say that it is 10 times worse if it gets shoved like in your face mid-game and you're already in a bad mood, right? Like there's already a guy spin botting on your map and now he's playing something that you have to wait for.
yeah.
Like there are no more ways to make people feel shitty about it. And then you take so that's just one of the things, right? Then we had the spawning outside the map. That happens quite often.
Yeah.
I understand that can make it in. Fair enough. I'll throw you a bone on that one.
And they already hot fixed that one, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
They were quick. Fair enough. They were really quick, and I think it got hot fixed like literally a couple hours ago on Xbox, as well. And in all fairness, patching for console and Xbox, we've had people on here and we've talked about it before, is a little more difficult than for PC.
Yeah.
Because every single update you roll out has to be approved by Sony or Microsoft. So that's why it's a little later. That's no one's fault. So that was fixed. The audio bug, that happens a lot. Maybe it's the repacking. They said they were going to repack the audio. Then on top of that, we're missing a little. I think we need a reaction to some of the flat earthers of Siege. Whenever a new patch hits, people out there saying that all the recall changed. I watched a video today about a guy explaining that all the recall changed on all the guns, so therefore it was necessary to make a new video about attachment. Nothing changed.
Interesting.
Nothing. And we have people saying that the sound changed. To my knowledge, the only thing that ever changed in the sound is that we have the sound bug again now.
Yeah,
that requires you to restart.
You know what's happening to what's happened to me a couple times is my audio has been reversed and I haven't realized it. So I'm like, the sound is different. You know what I mean? And it is different, but it's not like by design.
No, but I saw a discussion between two prominent figures in Siege. One saying, "Dude, the sound is so good in the new patch," and the other one was responding with, "You're kidding. The sound has never been worse."
Yeah.
But there's been no intentional change to the sound. I think people might have misread that post that came out where they said they were going to repack the audio. The way I understood that is that you change the way that the game like asks for audio. So when you shoot, it needs to know the gun, the rate of fire, play that file back, whatever, right? They changed that so when you have an audio bug, they can go in and just find that one segment of audio and play around with it. That shouldn't change the overall sound of anything in game.
Yeah.
My game did get louder though, but it got louder right after a Windows update. So that could be something as well. I just updated to the 2004 Windows update or feature update, and that was the exact same day that my game audio started getting really loud. So I think that just changed something there.
Correct me if I'm wrong here, and maybe you have some more information on this than I do, but I've heard murmurs that there's actually been some server switches as far as the server clients that we're going through or something along those lines. I have no idea. Okay.
I saw the pictures of the Gameloft servers on TS. I don't know if that was backup servers for it, if they're changing or whatever. But again, like that's one of the things where I would just like a little bit of transparency and clarity on that, because we are really good in the gaming world in general to just make up stories, and it's not necessary. Like if Ubi changed the sound, just tell us. That's fine. Like right? Just tell us. If the recall changed, tell us. If it didn't, and everyone's claiming that it did, debunk it. Right? Like go out and say, listen, we're hearing this and this and this. This is true. This is not true. Just clear it up, because you're having people like argue about the weirdest things.
Yeah. Here's the average Siege player. scrolling through Twitter. Oh, looks like Siege got new servers. Okay, now I'm playing a game. Oh, that was a headshot. I get back on Twitter. The new servers in Siege are garbage.
Yep.
That's literally like how that
Yeah.
works.
And you could be playing on Wi-Fi on your
Right.
couch while like the rest of your family is watching Netflix in 4K, and you have the little icon up in the top right, but it has to be the server.
Yeah.
Like the servers ain't perfect, man. Cloudflare had a massive outage a couple of days ago. Like nothing worked. Discord was down for over an hour where I live, and so was a lot of other things. And I mean, whatever other servers are out there, the Azure, the Amazon ones, like they're all gonna have issues every now and then. I can live with that. We're probably always gonna see a little bit more congestion when it's new patch release because there's more players. That also makes sense. But the overall gameplay, I don't know if they're better or worse. I don't have the ways of testing it, and I don't trust myself enough to sit there and say that it was the server's fault that the guy didn't die.
Right.
I just don't. It's like when people say that like they freak out over the Ember Rise even though they get shot in the back, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the server was meh, and maybe it was fine. I don't know. I've seen less icons for the server issue since the release, but it's also a very small sample size. 50 ranked games, it's 3 days.
Yeah.
I don't know if that means anything.
Here's where I'm at right now, because I think like obviously I made a video about this, and I think we're pretty much exactly on the same page. I think to sum up my frustration right now, I think that Rainbow Six Siege is the best first-person shooter of all time. I think that Operation Shadow Legacy is the best content-wise season that Rainbow Six Siege has ever seen. But I think it's also probably the worst rollout of any season I've ever seen. And I'm just frustrated that this stuff happens every season. You know, I said in the video that I made, like, for the last several seasons in the test server, there have been bugs that have been known and existed in the test server the entire time that have rolled out with the game. Okay? Now, they fix a lot in the test server. They absolutely do fix a lot of stuff in the time that the new season is in the test server before it goes live. But when you have a console player out there who is watching the reveal and sees that content is a month away from hitting from it being playable to them, maybe longer if they don't have the season pass, as far as the operator. But you have to justify that delay in that 4-week time period in the test server. I'm not sure that I agree with that delay based upon the product that we are getting with this type of a seasonal rollout. Obviously, like I guess it comes back to a lot of the questions we talked about in the whole state of Siege, that when that whole thing was a big hot topic within the community. It's like, we all love the game and we all want the game to succeed, but a lot of people are frustrated by it. And, some people are to the point where they're fed up, and, and obviously I'm not there. Like, I've made that very clear. But man, I just wish that we could get these seasons rolled out cleaner, because I feel like the reveal comes, we see all the new changes and the hype level's up here. Okay. And then 4 weeks of the test server already brings that hype level down some. And then the season rolls out and you've got all these bugs, cheaters, problems, and the hype level is like gone at that point. So if the season's going to roll out with bugs and stuff, why not give it a week in the test server and then roll it out?
I think, first off, with test server, the one thing the test server has, because it only releases on PC, is that they can give you a damn date, which means there are probably, like, this is just a guesstimate, right? But there's probably like 20% of players out there that will say, you know what, this day we know the test server's coming out. I'm gonna take time out of my day and play it, right? Like, I really want to go and test, Because the second test server goes live, we always like you find games instant. It's
Yeah.
fast
Yeah.
because people are excited. When you roll out a patch without telling anyone, you go, oh, there's gonna be a maintenance, wink, wink, and boom, now it's live. There are people that would maybe have taken a day of work. There are people that would have made sure they were at their PC or didn't plan anything. Like people that were super. I know when I was younger and I was excited for a game release, I would make sure there was nothing else that day,
Yeah.
right? Like I would want to sit down and just dive into this. And that just got stolen from everyone. Whatever the idea was of this launch, it was not it. This was a bad take, shouldn't happen. There is no point in doing it for whatever reason it was. Because you shouldn't rob people of that hype or being able to plan with their friends that, oh, yo, Jimmy, you want to play the new season today? All of that is just stolen away. I can live with the Bucks, man. Like, damn, we both played when games didn't get patches,
Sure.
right?
Yep.
I'm completely fine with games having issues. I think as a community we should maybe stop trying to abuse them every single time we find them.
That'd be nice.
That whole event thing is probably the most depressing thing I've ever seen in a video game. Like
Yeah.
there are people cheating in Fall Guys, sure, that's pretty messed up. But people glitching in a new event for fun, there's nothing to be gained. The only thing you can do is destroy it for others. If you steep to that to find joy, you need some sort of. It's just it's messed up, and the fact that that becomes more and more normal, and like I had people come in and say that they were doing it just to see how it, or well, they were doing it because everyone else was. So no one wants to be the bigger man and you know not do it. So we had the event taken off the playlist
Yep.
because the community couldn't play nice. If that isn't messed up, I don't know what is. Now combine this with like the patch coming out and there's a few bugs there and people are having issues playing because they have to restart or they get stuck. It's a really, really rough launch. And it's such a shame because without a doubt, I mean, Siege is literally half of my life. I love it. It's best game ever, without a doubt. But that, like this release, definitely the most disappointing. And it shouldn't have been,
Right.
right? Because look at all the damn things we got.
Yeah.
Like there's so much good stuff.
And let me throw something at you here. Not to make excuses, but something that I just thought of. Okay, because I remember whenever we both played this. We both played it early. We both got early access like a week before the announcement to play it early. And I remember whenever I saw all the changes, one of my initial thoughts was, how in the hell did they accomplish all this while working from home with the conditions that they're working under? This is actually amazing that they were able to accomplish the amount of changes that we have in this patch. And you can't take that away from them. So I guess maybe what we're seeing as far as this rollout is the result of them working from home. Maybe this content, like you can't take that away from them. The fact that they were able to bring this much new content in one patch, but maybe the ability to roll it out cleanly is what was really affected more by their working conditions because of this pandemic. Is that a possibility? I don't know. I don't know how all that works. But I think it's something you have to consider.
But if it is that, like, I think that's my point. If that is the case, just tell us, right? Because sure, there are going to be people out there saying, "Ah, just do your job," blah blah blah. I don't care about that at all. But there's definitely a core audience that enjoys this game and that actually really cares. Just let us know, why did this happen? Why was it like this? Like, there's nothing to lose. If it was a mistake, just say it was a mistake. And at least we understand, right? Because we want to play the game, we enjoy the game, and I know that they damn enjoy making it. Every single one we've ever talked to there bleeds them, right? they are more hurt. I talked to one of the guys that worked on the event. I hope he doesn't mind me saying this, but he was really sad that
Oh,
they had to pull the event off, right?
dude, I
Um,
guarantee he was crushed.
yeah, like imagine like this is your passion. You've worked with it. You really care for this. You're so excited to show this new teleporting drone stuff, and 3 hours in, people are abusing it, like climbing inside the wall. Like that's got to be gut wrenching and like really piss you off because you don't have an ability to just magically fix it. You just can't, right? So you're sitting there with this project where I would argue if that didn't happen, it would probably have been the single best event we've ever had. And I ended up playing it for 3 hours and then I couldn't play it anymore because
I didn't.
every round.
Yeah, I didn't even earn the charms.
Um,
The charms were cool that you could earn in it, and
yeah.
I didn't even get them.
And I'm so sad that that happened because like that's the sort of stuff that I don't know, like when people really care for a project that they make and then that's what comes from it, that's hard on people, man. Right?
I guarantee it.
So sure we have the whole COVID. It's not easy for them to work from home. There's gonna be mistakes and all of that. But just be public about it. Just tell us. I'm pretty sure most of us can handle it. And for the ones that can't, they're not gonna be happy anyway. We have right now, I don't know if we might be able to throw it up on the screen, but we did some testing with the sites. Actually, a nice guy from my stream did. So the sites have changed. We talked about this as well in the last one, which is quite a while ago. But the sites are very fuzzy or blurry. The new one, and you might say boomer eyes and all of this, but if you do place them next to each other, the old live build was very sharp. It was one color and a normal circle, right? And the new one, at least a 1080p, it has this like anti-aliasing effect or blurry effect around it. But if you were to scale this up because it's part of the HUD element to 4K, it is perfect. It is so good looking. So I think what went wrong there is it's probably made for 4K. Maybe it's, maybe they tested on like next gen or they just tested at the highest resolution to make sure that it looked good. I don't know. I legit have no idea. Because we had the whole issue with aspect ratio messing with your scaling as well of the HUD, right? Like if you were playing 4:3, you couldn't see your ammo in the test server that we played. That was just outside of it because of how the HUD worked. And the crosshair is part of that element. So when you run it at very high resolutions, as far as I know, TAA or temporal anti-aliasing and resolution has an effect on this, but you cannot make it as sharp as you could on the old one at 1080p. So you have to go to 4K or more if you want to get it sharp. And let's be fair, no one's going to play 4K Siege. Well, there's probably some, but I'm not going to dip my 240 FPS down to 70 to get a sharp hollow, right? So while it's nice to get the option to change color on my site, I'd like to be able to look at the site without it bothering me as well, right? And it's some of those quality of life changes where what they did was such a good intention and something we really want. But there's a thing in it that makes it not worth the trade. Like for me, I would rather not be able to change the color and then have the hollow that I'm used to that I could see that doesn't like mess with focus. I'm sure they're gonna work on it. I'm sure they're gonna try and fix it. But it's this little thing where you get something that you really wanted, but something else is kind of messed, right? We have kind of the same with reinforcement pool. Reinforcement pool is damn awesome, but it is horrible in solo queue. I find myself doing the whole thing. Like I am walking around, okay, this wall needs one, this wall, oh, I need to make a rotate. And now we're a minute into the round, and there's 4 people, they just ran to each side of the map to get a spawn peak, right? And I'm setting up everything. Dum, dum, dum. Or you take one round where you want to roam and you can see there's 6 reinforcements, right? So it's a really good thing, but we're not that good at using it, right? We kind of forget that. Yellow ping, probably amazing for newer players. Maybe we'd need to test it longer before it gets thrown into comp out of the blue. I will say in defense of this, I'm pretty sure that comp players would have tried this and known about it before it
Probably.
went live. I would assume that. And they probably had ways of giving feedback. Now, in all fairness, giving feedback does not mean that you have to be like you should be listened to. You shouldn't be the one deciding, right? So if you say you don't like it, that's fine. They'll listen to that. That doesn't mean that they shouldn't do it. I think there's some things with yellow ping that is super interesting, and I think there's other things that are really annoying. JB told us that the yellow ping is supposed to be visible in the kill cam. I don't know if it is yet, because I don't think I have seen a yellow ping in a kill cam yet.
Well, are you saying like for the Pro League games that you watched?
No, just for like when you play.
Oh, no, yeah.
If you get killed by someone, the way I understood what he said is that you are supposed to be able to see the yellow pings, so you don't get this idea that people just have unobtainable precision info, right? Because I will say, if you're sitting behind a soft wall or barricade and you get one tapped and you don't know if it's a yellow ping or not, there is no way that you just don't instantly think, wait, what's going on here, right? Whereas if you can see the yellow ping, that all of a sudden gives you a little bit of trade info. At least you can say, oh, they have a drone in this room and the guy who killed you, right? So you get a little bit of info. But I haven't seen the yellow ping yet in a kill. Maybe it's there, and maybe people aren't using it as much as they maybe should. And the contextual ping is so good, yet very rarely used, at least in where I play. Most people just call out, they say, okay, there's 2 batteries on the wall. And then you ask them, well, can you ping them? And they're like, oh, yeah, I can do that. And of course, like, we played 5 years without it. It's going to take a while to get used to. But it's not used as much as I thought it.
The most I'm seeing it used is on the diffuser.
Yeah, spam ping the diffuser is here. See it here? Yeah.
So as far as the season, we talked about it a good bit leading up to its release, in previous podcasts and the new content and stuff. But now that the season's actually been released to everybody in the game, is there anything meta-wise that has changed that's kind of surprised you? Like as far as the scopes, as far as the hard breaching tool, anything like that came that you're seeing having a bigger effect or maybe even a smaller effect than what you thought?
Well, I think Melusi, so we don't have enough data yet, and all of this is going to be my view and anecdotal, right? If we look at the DC SQ game yesterday, they played Melusi pretty much every round on defense. It didn't seem to matter at all. And sure, you could make that case for everything when one team wins and the other team loses, but it didn't seem like it was that big of a deal. I think we overreact with a lot of things when stuff change. They've definitely done some mess ups. I'm in the boat of line is probably not a good idea, but he was there, learned to deal with it. Same with Melusi. She's strong. I get that. I understand it. I don't think it changes the game as much as people say it does. With the ping system, same. I can make arguments for why it is overpowered and busted in certain situations, but I could probably also make the argument for why sometimes it's like it causes a loss, right? There could 100% be mistakes made by players where it would cost you instead of be helpful. The new Heartbreak gadget, I think, is super interesting and very, very well balanced, because I don't think that really changes a lot in terms of how you play. I actually think on Capital, for example, getting the Heartbreak gadget is a nerf to him if you were to pick that over Flashbang, because against Wamai, he can deal with every single Wamai on the map and burn all of them, right? Whereas with the Heartbreach, you can't. Also, you don't really get a lot of choices with it. It doesn't seem that strong. Now, Ace is probably going to get banned a ton just in general. I get why, but that's in my book honestly not that bad of a thing because then we get to see some Thatcher being in there.
Yep.
And I truly believe that if we get enough things that have overlap and even if people want to call them power creep, I'm honestly fine with that. But if we get enough strong things in the game, there are more options, and we're gonna get a more interesting game to watch. I want to see teams like years from now have their style with how they like. Maybe one team runs a certain set of operators, and that's their style. Another team runs another set of operators. Someone flexes a ton between different operators. So there's some more personality in the different, like DC, Mint, and Blitz. We don't see a lot of Blitz.
It's fun,
Like,
isn't it?
yeah. It's a nice thing to see. It's a very different play style, right? But it gives a little bit of personality to a team when they have these specific things they do. Citizen in G2 with the Orc suppressed, right? Argue if that's a good idea or a bad idea. It doesn't matter. It's cool to see some different stuff from teams. So I think all of that is good. I don't think there's any like massive meta change. If the argument is that yellow ping is too strong for attackers, isn't that maybe a good thing? Like defenses, everyone's been complaining that there was too much 20-second meta, there wasn't enough to do. Now you can ping things very accurately. You can remove more stuff through the floor. Maybe it's going to change the win rate for some sites and some maps, whatever. I don't know if that's a bad thing. We can't expect updates and not expect change. I think that's the big problem. Because we want new stuff, but we want things to stay the same. And I don't know how you achieve that. Like, you sure add more of the same. That doesn't do anything, right? Add new stuff. Well, if it's too strong, nerf it, and if it's too weak, buff it. But like getting it perfect is never gonna happen. So we as players need to leave some sort of leeway for things to not always be the way we want them, and then just remember that it's not that important if you like all the maps, right? Now we have map ban, and the next thing people complain about is the maps that are in the map ban. Like, I don't know, man. Maybe I'm a boomer. Maybe that's it. But I think it's very, very difficult for people to just enjoy what they have.
Yeah.
Even in this, like the worst release ever of the best patch ever.
Yeah.
Like you get map bans, and now you're complaining that the choices you have aren't good enough.
Well, the reason I have a hard time going against map bans is because you'll never play a map that the majority of the players in the lobby, you'll never ban a map that the majority of the players, at least on your team, didn't agree to ban.
Yeah.
Like that, that's what it comes down to. So I understand that system in the long run can run to more competitive maps, but only if the players agree on it. Mm-hmm. That's what I can't get past whenever I'm like trying to understand where the people upset with map bans are coming from. Regarding like the Pro League and the meta and like what we saw last night. So I guess, first of all, DZ played the Sonics. DZ won 2-0. And then Tempo played Oxygen. And Tempo won in 3 maps. And I think I'm pretty much on par with you. I would say as far as the yellow ping, which is the big controversial thing right now, I have a tweet out where I'm asking pros to give me feedback on, any situations in which it resulted in a kill or a death directly. I'm not looking for, well, I pinged them and then that gave us information and then, 2 minutes later we killed them. Like I'm looking for like more direct instances. So far I have 2. So 2 instances out of 2 maps. There may be more that I just haven't gotten yet, but I don't know. Where does that fall for you? Is that outside the realm of acceptable? I'm not sure. So there's that. I will say watching the pros use Ace and that AK-12 was scary, dude. Like he was banned some, but especially that Tempo Oxygen game, man, it seemed like every time the spectator was on the Ace, he was just fragging out. And it honestly, like, it might have meta ramifications down the line. Because what if it becomes a situation where Ace is the most, like, Ace is the operator that has the most frag potential, but he's also a hard breach operator. So now, do you see these hard breach operators like fragging out of their minds? Do you end up actually putting your entry on hard breach? Like, how does this change things? Like, I don't know that we really know yet. But it was definitely. I mean, obviously, I've known that the AK-12 is a good gun, and I've theorized that he could have a huge impact on Pro League. But that's what jumped off the screen to me yesterday was not Malusi, but Ace. I
Yeah.
will say that. And it wasn't even, I don't even think it was his utility, although his utility is what allows them to bring him when he's available. You know what I mean? And that's what gives him the
Yeah.
flexibility. But it wasn't like I was watching, I was like, oh my God, Ace's canisters, Ace's Selma is what really changed that round. I was like, oh my God, Ace and the AK-12 just killed everybody.
Yeah, the AK is interesting because I think the AK-12 is good enough to justify bringing Fuse every now and then, especially right now where, for some weird reason, Fuse has been reverted back to the shrapnel change stuff that was removed from him after the shrapnel change update again. So that means he can kill people through floors again. I think that is busted strong, and I don't think it's an intentional thing. I think it's a mistake. And if it is intentional, I still think it's a mistake. Because now you can fuse a window on first floor and kill or destroy everything on the floor below. A good example would be consulate basement. You can destroy the Maestro cams on the floor of the garage by fusing piano window. If that isn't an easy clear, I don't know what is. And you get an AK-12. With Ace, I don't ever think you will see him. And I think if you do, it's the wrong thing to do. I don't think you're going to see him like take over Hibana or Thermite in terms of doing that job. But he's easy to throw into a team because you can still remove shields, right?
Yep.
If you're struggling with a shield, throw Selma on it. If you want to create a line, throw Selma on the wall, shoot the second charge so they can't rotate through it. So he has a lot of utility and can help a lot with that. But we need that because everyone has issues with the 20-second meta. This guy fixes a lot of that. And if you want to ban him, fair, then Thatcher's in, right? And I don't think the Thatcher nerf has done anything except for making it so you can't be lazy. Good teams and teams that know how to use Thatcher shouldn't struggle too much with the change, and you can still bandit, right? Everyone was panicking. Oh, bandit tricking's dead. They did the same thing when they were testing the EMP effect before the change came in. Everyone was panicking, say you can't bandit trick. You can. You just need to remove the old battery and then. So it's possible. And he isn't banned 24/7 now, but it's hard to justify bringing Thatcher some rounds because you still want to have some things that go boom. You might want a Nomad, right? Maybe you want a Shield. So it becomes harder and harder to get these OP setups. People always bring these lineups where they say that, well, if you have this and this and this and this, it's overpowered. Sure. But if the enemy team has any of these given things, well, now you can't deal with it. So I think that's where the depth comes into the game. No matter how you set up, no matter what scenario you make defense setup, there is a way that you would be able to deal with it with any amount of given attack. You could attack from another place, you could shoot stuff from below, from above, from different angles. And honestly, I enjoy when we get kind of stuck into something where it seems like this is the best thing that can be done, because some team will find a way to break it. And once it breaks, it creates this whole new thing where everyone else has to find something new to do, right? And that's what makes it interesting. That's why CS could keep the same maps without really changing a lot on them for a very long time. Is because something becomes flavor of the month, and one team will find out a way to just do something like completely different to break that. And now you can't run the flavor of the month setup anymore because everyone else will do this one counter. So now you need to do new stuff, right? We have that in Siege, but at like 4D chess level. No matter what setup you have, there are numerous ways of dealing. If you can afford to bring a blitz on coastline, right, to go for plant, to rush in and kill the smoke like DC, and make it work like that, that shows that maybe there's a lot of things you can Siege that isn't being done. Maybe there isn't this one way, like this one way is the best way, and we're probably never gonna. I think it's gonna be one big circle of. Eventually, we'll go to a bunker. Then we're gonna go to like massive roam, and just gonna keep going in circles, right? And no matter how many operators they release, that will always. We're probably at the point now where releasing new strong operators does the least to change the. Because we all like. Do you remember when Hibana came out?
Yeah.
Do you remember how people freaked?
Oh yeah.
Like it would be impossible to defend. And in all fairness, Hibana's gotten nerfed quite a lot since then. Quite a lot, right?
Yeah.
But defender win rate was still positive. So even though she was like insanely strong, she could old Oregon. Like this was the trick that the people found out, right? Like you go up, you open the big main window in Old Oregon, and you shoot a set of Hibana pellets through the hallway, upstairs. It'll burn every ADS in the map, or that is up there. Yeah. Done. Okay, now you can flash and you can open and you can do all this stuff. ACOG 30 round mag. I think she had 30 rounds. I think she got nerfed to 20. Actually, I can't remember. Maybe she had 20. But her gun was really strong. Bearing 9 had like almost no recoil.
The Bearing 9 was one of the top 5 guns in the game at one point. It didn't have ACOG, but other than that, it was in the upper echelon of guns.
Yep. And same with the SMG-12 when that came out. You could hip fire people across the map. I have a clip of me sitting in T3 in Oregon and one-tapping a guy outside a kitchen door. Hip fire with that gun. It was so accurate. You could just go tick, 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 tick. So all of those operators massively changed the game. And yet, we still managed to play just fine today. There's more stuff to keep track of course. But I mean, we kind of knew that when we started Siege that it wasn't a normal shooter, right? Like, there's so many weird things you could do in the start of Siege that you couldn't do anywhere else. And I don't know. I think it's moved for the better. I just think when people look back, they only remember the good things because they're using it as a comparison for the things they don't like now. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think the meta is massively changed or anything, at least not yet. And if it does, I think that's a good. That's probably the sum of that.
I will say this, me personally, and maybe especially in the DZ match, and maybe it's just the way that these two teams match up, because the last time that DZ played the Sonics, I remember this being the case too, but to me, the pacing of those rounds felt really fast. Like there was action throughout the entire rounds. And even though that, like, there were still rounds where there were executes within the last 20 seconds, it wasn't like 5-on-5. It was more of like, 3-on-3 or 3-on-2 or something like that. And, but there's a lot that can go into that. Maybe it has to do with the new season a little bit and the aggressor, maybe the defenders feeling a little bit more aggressive. And I think there is some truth to that. Like picture, remember Eclipse playing on Warden on Cafe up there in Pixel and stuff. Now he's got Warden with the MPX and the 1.5 now. So in my opinion, that if let's say he's playing Warden before this patch, he's playing Shotgun SMG-11. Now Eclipse is a very good SMG-11 player, but I don't think that he would have been challenging the same angles and playing that the same way in that situation with the SMG-11 as he was with the MPX 1.5. Maybe he wouldn't have been playing Warden at all.
Sure, but that's just an operator here and there, right? Like it. So the setup didn't really change. They could have played the same setup, but with a different operator. And then you can argue he could play a little longer there because he's Warden. Sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But he could maybe have played a little longer if they had 3 ADSs and all there were mines. So like that's what I mean. There's so many ways to achieve the same thing.
Sure.
Um, I do think the sight changes probably did less than what people think. It's still way too early, and I'd love to see the stats at some point on it. If KDs went up or if guns got stronger, that's always super interesting because it's never what we think when you get the data on those guns. Um, the ACOG change is bothers me a little bit. Um, I'm fine with them removing ACOG from like half the operators. That doesn't really bother me. But why change it to 2.5 when we always had it? Just make one of the other ones a 2.5.
Yeah.
Like I don't see the reasoning for changing that. That just seems weird.
Did you know that it was 3.0
Yes.
previously? Okay, because there's several of us. I know myself and Varsity both were under the assumption it was 2.5 before. Why did I think that?
It was called a 2.5, wasn't it?
Maybe it was. There was some reason that I assumed it was a 2.5.
I think it says ACOG 2.5 times.
Okay.
I'm not sure. But yeah, we've always called it a 2.5, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Actually, funny little thing that people might have forgot. I talked to Matt, the recall guy. This is what I'm gonna refer to him to today, and we were talking about back in year one, the scope on the guns had different distance to the camera, so your sights would be different. Like your the size of your hollow would be different because it was moved forth and back on the different guns. So the camera position compared to the sights would.
Yeah.
So that changed now, so they're all the same. They fixed the stuff with 1.5 after a test server. Do you remember we were talking about how like all you were looking into was the ion sights?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's fixed with the new riser that JD was talking about that they were implementing. So that was a quick turnaround.
And they gave Havana ACOG back.
Yes, they did that as well. But yeah, that's one of those changes where I think that was unnecessary. I don't know why they wanted to make the ACOG a 2.5 instead of a 3. Why?
It was kind of weird.
That's just it's hard to explain. And then if it's for consistency, I mean, bro, we've been playing with this for 5 years.
Right.
Right. If you can't pull consistency on that one. You just can't.
One interesting note, I didn't see any dock play. Not that I remember anyway. I did see a Rook brought, and I believe it was the first round as Sonics versus DZ. There was a Rook brought. And keep in mind, Rook still has, he has the 2.0. Doc, does he have the 1.5? I think he has 1.5 on P90, right? He doesn't have it on the MPX, does he?
He has 1.5 on the MPX.
Or on the MP5?
MP5, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he does. But the gun feels completely different. It's funny how, because the recoil doesn't change. It just doesn't.
You could argue that recoil visually would be better, right?
Yeah. But I think it's the time it takes you to line up those tight shots with an ACOG that makes him so strong.
Yeah.
Because mathematically, Rook is probably always better. If you were to like figure out the value on Rook, I would argue that he always brings more value to the team overall, because everyone can survive one more shot. Everyone will get down when they blow up, right? So, like for example, on Kitchen and Coastline, if they bring a lot of grenades, they start doing vertical play, you're way more likely to win a fight through the floor if you can take one more bullet, right? Way more likely. Or if you can survive one nade and just get downed, maybe you can get picked up. So all of that helps a ton, whereas Duck has to be close, he has to have a stim pistol out, he's super vulnerable, and so are you. But again, I don't think that's a bad thing. I am more than happy to see more different operators in play. I want to start seeing some smoke FMG with 1.5.
Dude,
that thing slams.
It does. It's one of the best guns on defense.
Like that's one of the stuff, or one of the things with the sight changes that I really like. It's maybe it'll bring some newer interesting lineups, right? Like Warden MPX 1.5, pretty good.
Mute MP5K 1.5. I'm really loving that right now. Walmart. I mean, it was debatable before. Which do you bring, the MP5K or the AUG? No question anymore, in my opinion. You bring the MP5K with 1.5 if you're playing Walmart.
Yeah, probably. I still think there's a good argument for the orc
The
just because
AUG is
of
a stronger
the
weapon. It's statistically
it's
it's a
still
very strong weapon. But when you combine the size of it, and how much
ADS
of your
time as
screen
well.
it blocks, and then you combine the fact that the MP5K has 1.5 available, I think I would advise the average player to gravitate towards the
Yeah,
MP5K.
and the ADS time is faster because it's an SMG
Yes.
instead of a rifle.
Yep.
Um,
So yeah, I don't know. I guess regarding Malusi, I have a feeling if you were to talk to any of the pros that played yesterday, they would say something along the lines of, well, yeah, even though you didn't see Malusi's Banshees lead to any direct deaths, you don't realize how much utility she soaked up, and we had to get rid of them in order to push here. And I'm not discrediting them. I don't mean to sound like I'm mocking them. I think that point is valid.
Sure.
But yes, I only remember seeing one direct death to a Banshee, and it's very debatable whether that death would have been. It was going to be a pretty easy kill either way. I felt like it was on Theme Park, and I believe it was Bio. He was in a 1v2, and he was in the bathroom, and an enemy was pushing from the bathroom hallway through to like I guess it would be Drug. And there was a Banshee right there, and he got into the Banshee, and he peeked around and got the easy kill. But again, I think he gets that kill anyway. Yeah, I didn't see anything where the Banshees were like crazy strong, but
I mean, there's no doubt that sure you have to remove them. But let's say you have 3 Banshees, you put them 3 different places on the map. What's the chance that you need to remove all 3 of them? It's not that big.
No.
Also, you can't put the Banshee and the Maestro camera too close to each other because then you just get both with one. You can't have the deployable shield too close, then you get both with one. It's this whole like when you place that barbed wire and Capcom comes and puts this trap next to it. Well, why did I place barbed wire then? Because if anyone runs into Capcom trap, the barbed wire's gone anyway, right? I get that it sucks that you have to use utility on it, but there also needs to be things to soak up this utility. Because otherwise attack will be way too strong. If attack can just destroy everything they want with the utility they have and not have to choose between it, if you can just only use nades for people and not have to deal with anything, if there's nothing you have to burn, then I get it. That's why I dislike Jaeger so much, because he removes the gadget. Whereas if I nade a Malusi trap, it's 1-for-1, right? It's one of my gadgets, one of his gadgets. That makes sense. Jaeger just saps them. Even Wamai will take your grenade or your flashbang and redirect it somewhere else. Which, I mean, a lot of Wamai players will put their magnets in the roof, right? If I throw a flashbang or a Candela in there, it'll get more, like, people will be more blinded, right? So there's some play around with that. And if you pick Malusi, there's arguably some other character you didn't pick, right?
Yeah.
Could you have had a smoke? Could you have had a Lesion? Sure, Lesion doesn't have the same strong effect as Malusi, but he gets way more.
Yeah.
So
he's got more potential.
You can't plant. Yeah, you can't plant while in that. You can't sprint. You need to, when you remove that, that's way worse removing a Lesion mine than it is to melee a Banshee. And it still requires someone to be close. It was the same argument with Nomad. Nomad was way too strong. You could just place them everywhere, and then you didn't have to hold flank. I mean, that's clearly not the... Because we see Nomad played a lot. We still see plenty of flanks happen. If no one is there to shoot you when you get air jabbed, it doesn't matter.
Other than because that they know. That's really the only thing that happened. And that could be done with the flank drone. Could be done with a SAM cam. It could be done with... a claymore, really. I mean, unless they're having a suppressed weapon or something like that. But I think the only thing I want to say about Malusi is that I think personally, if I was king for a day and I would go back to her release, knowing what I know now, I would have maybe given her a different gun, and then maybe not given her nitro cell. Now, again, we run into that thing where the defender gadgets are so good now. What do you give her? But maybe barbed wire and impacts. But then you've got 3 Banshees plus
No,
2 barbed wire. She can slow down everything. You know what I mean? Like,
no.
I
We
mean,
tried to
but
look at that and do the math on it. There's no way.
I
She
know,
has to
it's
have
tough.
C4
But
because if you
I
trade that C4 for anything else, it is something else you have to remove. And so I really wanted to make a spreadsheet, but I can't figure out how to do it. But I want to value gadgets on operators to figure out how much like the trade value is. So let's say Melusi had barbed wire. She would have 3 Melusis and 2 barbed wires.
yes.
You would have to remove all of them, right? So
Well,
like if we pretend like they were all in perfect use,
sure.
and they needed to be removed, so that requires 5 things to remove this. If we just pretend for a second that we could say a deployable camera instead of barbed wire, something that has to be blown up. You don't have enough stuff now to deal with this because she brings 4 things that needs to be dealt with. That
Yeah.
was kind of the problem with Goyo. He had 3 shields. The best you can get on attack is 2 things to remove, or you could have Kali, in theory, could remove 3, right? So then you start stacking that, and now the attackers do not have enough. So if you were to place your things, if we just imagine that you placed all your things in one straight line, could the attackers make it from one side to the other? Right? To figure out if the gadget economy adds up. Because it would be fun to see if that has any impact on win rate. The gadget economy of one setup versus another setup. And then you could kind of look over like 100 games or something and see what kind of things win more. If it is true that this stuff is stronger, or if it just feels worse to play again. Because those are 2 very, very different things. Like that's what we talked to was it Dixon about, right? There's a big difference between balance and frustration. Things can be extremely balanced but very frustrating, or they can be super unbalanced and not frustrating at all, right? Um, it's a happy little balance between that. It's like we heard the feedback that Kali was going to be a completely oppressive OP entry. That was the first stuff we heard about Kali from a lot of comp, and that's not been. Goyo definitely had a massive impact. I think it had more to do with the strength of a shotgun than it did with the shield. Because I've seen a lot of cases where that shield ended up actually hurting the defenders a bit when it blew up, because no one can peek it for the duration that it's gone. So that gives you some time to move and do stuff, right? Maestro losing ACOG didn't do that much to him. I mean, maybe it did, but we're still seeing him a fair bit, and you still have to deal with cams, right? He's played in a different position, maybe not as aggro anymore. But in all honesty, you'd probably want to play against the Maestro that peaked everything, because if you could shoot him, at least he can't sap you when you're trying to plant, right? So, I don't know. I think we have to be very careful when we hear feedback on stuff like that. If we jump on, like, let's say a team just lost to something and they go after an upper. I get that you're frustrated. It sucks that you lost, but let's take it with a grain of salt. If that's what you really think about it and what really makes sense, or if you're just upset that it had an effect on the game and you didn't change it. And on the other hand,
I've never done that before in my entire life, by the way.
me neither. With like, you gotta be careful with the feedback if it comes from frustration and like heat of the moment feedback of I just lost a round because I was stuck in a Melusi and I could definitely have killed the other 2 people if I was. And then look back in the round, like, did maybe the fact that little Jimmy sprang out of spawn and got one tapped as Sophia matter? And if maybe you didn't waste both of your ass charges on a soft wall in the other end of the map to rush through, could you have dealt with it, right?
Yeah. I'm not, and I'm not gonna say that I always get the right take in every single one of my YouTube videos, but when people ask me like, why are you different on stream like a lot of times when people watch me stream, the comment is, in your YouTube videos, you're so composed and so logical, and then whenever I watch you stream, it's not like, it surprises me how emotional you are. And I'm like, that's just the nature of me. You know what I mean? Like if I'm sitting down and I'm doing a YouTube video, I'm collecting my thoughts, I'm putting it together. I not only say it, but I listen to it back, and I see, I'm not somebody who has a script, but I might have bullet points that I'm reading off of or something like that. So there's a big difference between that and being in the game in the heat of the moment, dying, and then your instant reaction. That's what you get on live stream. That's a lot of times what you get on Twitter too, to a little bit of a lesser degree, but still it's that more of a hot take.
It comes out 5 minutes after you were
Right.
affected by it, right? Like it's live emotion. And on top of that, you get a ton of survivorship bias in this as well. I'm sure you've heard the story about like all the planes that came back after World War II that were like the hull was completely shut up, right? And they're sitting there thinking, okay, what do we do? And of course you reinforce the wings, because the ones that made it back were the ones that were shot in the hull. The ones that didn't were the ones shot in the wings, right? But on like first glance, you're thinking, oh, all of these planes are, the hull is shut out. Like we should probably fix that. We have the same in Siege. You'll be upset with a few things, and you won't think about what led to that frustration. It's just that moment. Like it happens with Jackal all the time. People run to some default place to spawn peek, open the window, run away to hide and roam, and then they get upset that Jackal is too strong because I got pinged. But all he did was run to the window that he just saw you at and then ping you, right? There are ways that you could have dealt with, right? Like maybe you could have gone back to the site. Maybe you could have had another guy go roam where you wanted to roam and then still go there and ping. On Bank, for example, you could run up from both sides of the stairs, like two players, and play on the opposite side of where you ran up. That means when Jackal pushes through and he scans the footprints of the guy who ran up spiral stairs, he will get the guy who's the furthest back instead of getting the guy who's closest, right? So like there are many ways to play around with some of these mechanics in Siege that can sort of help some of these problems out, instead of just instantly saying this needs to. And we all do that. I do it as well. Like we want stuff to change around us instead of us changing around. And it's probably a lot healthier to do the other one, right? It's probably healthier if we try to adapt and we try to learn that stuff, because then we grow a little instead of just always looking at, well, I don't want this map, I don't want this operator, I don't want this thing, I don't want this thing. Because there's no way that we all get what we want. It's just not going to happen. Like, even if you get your perfect game, I promise you a lot of people will disagree with your perfect. If I get my perfect game, most people will disagree with that as well.
Yeah.
So we're all going to have to take some sort of loss on this and then just accept that that's how stuff is, man.
One of the things that came out from Ubisoft in the last couple of days was a memo or a blog, I guess you would call it, talking about really the core concept of how they plan to balance the game when it comes to competitive versus casual. Is that a fair summary of how you would word that memo? I mean, I think that was the big picture goal. Like, and basically the way that I interpreted it was they really want the game that the average player plays to resemble the same game that the pros plays. And they gave some specific examples. One example was Ping 2.0, and they use that as an example of if the average player has it in their game, they don't want to remove it from comp because they want the two games to mirror each other. Because that was that was a popular opinion, was to keep it in regular game, remove it from comp, or remove it from ranked. Keep it in casual, remove it from ranked. I'm not saying that was my opinion, but some people were saying that. I actually applaud them on that memo and that vision, because I'll give you an example. And I tweeted this out, but I think it's important to say again on here. Call of Duty. I came from Call of Duty, and I think Call of Duty, like, if you think that the player numbers compared to esport viewer numbers are lopsided in Rainbow Six Siege, Call of Duty is on a whole different world. Call of Duty is literally the most popular entertainment franchise in the world. I want to say, like, it is like there's no like entertainment franchise that profits more every single year, or makes more every single year. I think maybe a better way of wording that, but yet Call of Duty as an esport hasn't really gotten to that like crazy amount of success that the game has. And in my opinion, one of the biggest reasons why is because the game that the average player plays doesn't even resemble the game that the pros play. I mean, if you look at the amount of items that the average player has available to them in the game and that the pros don't have available to them, it's crazy trying to keep track of their rules. They don't have like half of the kill streaks that are available or score streaks. Like half of the guns won't be available. Now you add, the different agents and their abilities or whatever. I mean, that wasn't the case in Modern Warfare, but in other games. And all of a sudden, the game, like when you're an average player coming over, maybe you love playing Call of Duty. You go and watch your first esport event. You're looking and you're like, well, why aren't they using a UAV? Why aren't they running the chopper gunner? Like why, and it makes it really hard to follow and really hard to relate to. So that's why I think the vision that they have is one that I can support. With that said, it gives them zero margin for error when it comes to balancing. And one thing that we've mentioned on here that I think still could be achieved and not disrupt this vision that they have are two separate builds of the game. One competitive, one ranked casual, or for live build. And the reason for those two builds would be one, so that you don't have these situations where you roll out a new patch and there's a Challenger League match the very next day. Comp could still play on that patch for another week, 2 weeks, however long it took for them to roll out. You could have a grace period for the patch as a whole instead of a grace period for operators. You know what I'm saying? And maybe you wouldn't need to make it a full season. Maybe it's only a week. Maybe it's only a month, whatever. But I still think there is a case to be made for two different builds of the game, but not balancing them separately. Just maybe holding off on when you introduce new items into the comp build of the game, if that makes sense. I know I just put out a lot of information there, but
no, I think there's two things to that. So the Call of Duty stuff goes all the way back to Call of Duty 2. Normal old school Call of Duty, when you played comp, you were only allowed X amount of SMGs, X amount of Kar 98s, right? Like or one-shot rifles. If you go to Call of Duty 4, the normal Call of Duty was pretty much how everyone plays Call of Duty today, with kill streaks, perks, and all of this. Then there was Call of Duty Pro Mod, which was an actual mod that you had to download, and you launched into different servers, and everything was completely different. The game even looked different because you had the texture scaled down, and everything was cleaner. There was less, like the playable character models had 4 different types instead of 7 or 8, I think. So it was all the cleanest character models that were being played. And it was the best Call of Duty I've ever played. Was this competitive mod. The problem was that this was not what most people played. Right? So as you said, the guns there were guns that you couldn't even use. You couldn't use any of the semi-auto snipers in Pro Mod. They were not allowed. You had certain perks forced on. There were certain maps you couldn't play. So if you were a casual player and you watched it, there's all of a sudden a lot of questions. So it's definitely hard if you want to split it and have like a comp one and a casual one. But on the other hand, we can look at CS, which has a comp side and then everything else. That is surfing, it's the casual game modes, it's aim maps, all of this stuff, right? Completely different from core CS. I think that would probably be the better way for Siege to go, where they have competitive Siege as a brand, and then you have just Siege. That will be all your events. Give us a deathmatch. Give us all this stuff. Arcade modes, whatever. And keep them over here in their own thing. Casual, remove rank. Like, rank, it's not a thing. And then have competitive Siege. So you can go in there and you can play competitive games. They will follow the Pro League rule set or the comp rule set, have the same settings. Everything's forced on. So if you want to play rank or comp, you have to do it in those settings. Go in and set some pretty tough restrictions on maybe time spent in the casual part of the game before you can go in there. I think that's fair. I think if you wanna go and compete, okay to ask that you have learned how to play first. Then what you'll basically do is you'll just take the ones that are at the lower rank now and have them be way better. Like maybe around plat 3 would be where silver 3 would be, like skill wise. So you have a much larger skill roof and ceiling, right? To the competitive side, but you also limit a ton of things. Maybe you could make it so it should be a trusted launch. So for you to even launch it, it has to be launched right after a reboot or something like that. Like some more tough anti-cheat on it where you have to sign into to play. Do it like fully hardcore like that and split the two things. Sure, that could be done. The question is if like what about console then?
Yeah.
Because that's where Call of Duty falls short, is that the reason that Call of Duty never took off like it did after Call of Duty 4 was because they had a deal with console to have all their competition there, and everything they did on PC they needed to be able to replicate on console. And that is a pain in the ass for a dev team.
Yeah.
Every developer I've ever talked to from any company ever says that the worst thing is to make something work on PC and on console, because you're always limited by console. You have less inputs, you have less power, you have less control over the system. You need to ask Microsoft and Sony for permission to update stuff. It costs money to update stuff. It's just tough to make all of that work. And there's no way that they will ever or can like say that we're moving to PC only. That would be a horrible thing, right? Like damn near 80% of the player base or 70% of whatever is on console. So they have to take care of that. And of course they should. Like they are the reason we have the game we have. If it wasn't for console, there's no way that we could play what we play on PC. So I don't know, man. Like I think where we are now is probably what it's gonna be like. And I don't see them splitting it up and having like a comp version and a casual version. If it was PC only, I think they would have done it a long time ago.
Yeah.
And it would have been easy. Well, maybe not easy, but a lot easier. But running two different patches for this, and then what do you do? Do you give console the comp version as well? Because they can't play Pro 1 or Pro League, right?
That brings up a great point, which is actually something I wish I would have mentioned in the beginning. We got an announcement at Ubisoft Forward that the next generation of consoles is going to run the game at 124 frames per second.
Mm-hmm. And free upgrade.
Free upgrade and 4K. Now, I don't know if that means 4K 120 frames per second. That seems like a lot to me. But 4K was mentioned as well as 120 frames per second. I think we can say that. And if you own it on PS4 and you buy a PS5, you will be able to go to PS5 for free. Couple things that weren't mentioned. Do all of your cosmetic items come with you? I really hope so. Another thing that wasn't mentioned, crossplay. Would they have mentioned that there if that was something that they were working on? I personally feel like if they were pretty sure, if they were sure that they were going to be able to do crossplay on the next generation of consoles, they probably would have announced that.
Yeah, maybe. But on the other hand, that whole event was very meh in general.
Well, aren't the Ubisoft Forward events like they're quarterly, aren't they?
They're definitely doing more than one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like the Ubisoft Forward event is there one E3 per year where they blow their whole load, for lack of a better term.
It wasn't hype, right? Like the whole Siege thing thrown in. I don't know if that had if it has something to do with PR and the release and stuff, but the Siege stuff thrown in seemed very meh, because the only new info we got was that upgrade is going to be free and it's going to be 120 FPS or 4K. I think it's one or the other.
Yeah.
There's no way they're doing 120 at 4K.
That would be nuts.
I don't believe it. Like it's almost impossible to get your PC at that.
Yeah.
I think I can run like 110 at 4K with a 2080 Ti and 5 gigahertz. I don't believe they're gonna do that on console. Maybe, but I think if I was doing like the marketing stuff there, I would save the crossplay if that became a thing, and have it for the release to get people excited around the actual. Because they're gonna need some sort of hype, because it's a 5-year-old game. You're trying to get people to play on a new gen console, and there's gonna be a lot of launch titles out there. You need something to like get people interested. Because everyone's gonna go try the new stuff. If they don't transfer cosmetics, that is gonna be a PR nightmare. There's like no two ways about that. That will be a storm on Twitter and a half. I understand how they can't do it from console to PC. Fair enough. That's one thing. But if I go from PS4 and I've spent, let's say, $1,000 on skins, which there are people that have.
Oh yeah.
And I go to PS5, and now I'm level 0.
Yeah.
And all my Glacier, Black Ice skins, everything's gone. I'm staying on damn PS4 at that point, man. I don't care how good it's gonna be.
I'm straight up gonna say it, dude. If they handle the mouse and keyboard and crossplay aspects of that correctly, I will switch to console just to avoid cheaters. If I can play the game at 120 frames per second, get all the settings I want. I mean, I've said this 100 times, but like, don't think for a second that I've literally got almost every Black Ice on my main account on PC that I want, and I will not hesitate for a second to jump on the console and play this game on there primarily if they get me everything that I want there and I don't have to worry about cheaters. The mistake that I'm afraid of is that they're going to support native mouse and keyboard, but when you plug it in, you're going to play against PC people. And if you're doing that, then you're going to have to worry about cheaters, and you might as well just be playing on PC at that point.
Yeah, so if you do that, it's a downgrade to console, and that should be something you can opt out of. Because it is not worth it to play mouse and keyboard for the trade-off to play cheater.
Yes.
I would almost go as far as to say if I could play on PC and plug in a controller and I wouldn't touch cheaters, I would rather play on a controller. And I hate playing controller. I despise playing controller.
Dude, that's a great question. Would you rather play with a controller or against cheaters? I mean,
but that's the choice right now. And it is such a grim thing to say out loud that you have two options right now. 60 FPS on a controller or 240 FPS, 240 hertz, mouse and keyboard, and you're playing against a spin bot.
That's not, let me throw one caveat in there. 60 frames per second with a controller, possibly against people who are using mouse and keyboard.
Sure.
Or
but at least they can be shot.
They can be killed. You're right.
They don't have new Shachanka walking backwards through banked lobby while one-tapping people through walls. But yeah, that part of PC gaming is probably the single biggest issue in any game right now that has any kind of leadable, and it is killing everything. Maybe game developers and software developers, like as in Microsoft themselves, has to start getting together and working on this. I am not an expert. I do not know what I'm talking about, but there need to be some sort of bigger collaboration to try and do something about this. Every single game is like, just go check, man. Every game you can think of that has a leaderboard, the community is saying it is infested with cheaters, right? And there's not nearly as many as we think, but they are there, and we notice them because they take our fun away.
And they're very memorable experiences when you encounter one, especially when they're in a Shachanka Elite.
Yep.
That's what I'm saying. I said this on stream the other day. This generation of consoles is going to show us who is running who's making the decisions for the PS5 and the next generation of Xbox. Is it a gamer who's also a businessman, or is it some corporate suit somewhere? Because if they roll these consoles, they have an opportunity unlike anything else at this moment. They do. Like, there's a huge vulnerability that you just mentioned with PC gaming. and they have the opportunity to completely capitalize on it. If they roll these fucking consoles out and they allow you to plug a fucking third-party device into it, they have completely missed the ball. And I swear to you, I will not even fucking buy one. Okay? That's where I'm at right now.
If they make a game like Last of Us, I'll buy it just for that. But otherwise, yeah, no, I won't touch it either. I heard someone mention. I watched a lot of this. It's called DEF CON. It's like a convention for hackers and lockpickers and stuff. In Vegas actually. It's super interesting, some of this stuff. One of the guys was talking about having, you know how like virtual machines, you can make a desktop on your PC, and that's been one of the big things. Apparently, I think Battle.eye targeted something and made it so you couldn't use virtual machines, but they find ways around it. But what they were arguing for was, or advocating for, was that there'd be a gaming version of Windows. A way that for you to go in and play, you would have to launch into this gaming. So basically, you're like, you know, when you're on your console, the hardware is locked and you can't mess around with stuff, and everything has to be verified, and it just won't launch if it isn't the original key or whatever.
Yeah.
If we had something like that where you could choose to, through your Microsoft Live account that is locked to everything else on your PC, it has access and can see what programs are running. It will just flicker your screen a couple times. It'll launch into this like virtual machine that is Windows gaming, whatever. And then you can play your games through there. And then developers will work together with them and give them rights to like monitor the game while it's being played. And you could play in there as like if you launched a console.
Yeah.
Maybe that could be a way of dealing with it. They're probably going to find another way to break it. Probably. At that point, they're going to start messing with actual hardware instead of software or something. I don't know. But it's probably along those lines, because we're seeing like these Twitter accounts pop up with normal, everyday software people spending time trying to catch cheaters to help game developers get them yeeted. We're seeing private investigators sent out to cheat developers. We're seeing lawsuits. We're seeing thousands of bans left and right, permabans, IP bans, hardware ID bans. And I know everyone's going to say, yeah, VPN, spoofer, blah, blah, blah. Sure. Doesn't mean you shouldn't try, right? We still have speed limits,
Anything to
even
make
though
it
people
harder.
break them. Yeah. It's all about just putting enough roadblocks that it is not worth the cream anymore.
Yep.
But yet, with all of that happening, we still see them every third game in rank. And I normally don't want to like over exaggerate it, but it doesn't feel like an over exaggeration. It feels like it is around every third, every fourth game in rank, higher elo, that you meet this. You are against 3 or 4 level 70s with an anime profile picture, and you go 3-0, they can barely shoot a drone. They look confused, right? And all of a sudden you're playing against Monty, Blitz, whatever, walking around. They never ADS, but they hipfire you across the map. And at that point, like, there's nothing you can do. You have to sit there and take the beating for 5 straight rounds. Just enjoy. You can match cancel, which feels like even more of a loss because you will get a ban for a bit.
And you don't get that elo back.
Yep. You can surrender, which feels just as bad, and I don't think you get the elo back for that either. I don't know if you do. My assumption is just that if you forfeit the match, it wouldn't count as a paid match.
Right.
So you have nothing. Like, you can do nothing. And it doesn't feel like they are getting removed quick enough. Maybe all of this could be fixed by simply having a dedicated team sitting there and literally removing the manual until they get sick and tired of playing. But how do you make sure you catch all, like, aren't they just going to be a little more subtle, right? So you aren't 100% sure, because you can't stop banning good players, right? Like, that's the thing with anti-cheat. False positives cannot happen.
Yeah.
It is unacceptable if you had a good game and you got banned. That is not okay. It can ruin people's reputations, lives, whatever. It is just not acceptable. Like, imagine whatever, Pingu plays on a different account one day, and he has like 5 good games, and people go, oh, get him out. Now he has a ban. Now, like what, right? But you can have false negatives, so you will have people that can cheat and that don't get noticed,
And that's
and you're
what
just gonna have to accept that.
that's why I think the smurfing problem is worse now than it's ever been, because that it leads not to false positives, but just to, so okay, you're in a ranked game and somebody is just murdering the lobby. Okay.
Yeah.
You look and they're a level 400 with a 1.5 ranked KD. Okay. Good player.
Yep.
Hats off. You look and they're a level 70. And now you're like, is this person cheating? You know what I mean? Like that's, or is it just a really good smurf? And that's,
well, but it makes sense. That's the problem. So this is where people always get edgy about it, right? Oh, but it could just be a smurf. Yes, but what is the intention? If you are level 70 and you are in, let's say you're a champ player on your main account, you have a level 400, you're a really good player. Now you're level 70 in a group of level 70 in plat 3 or gold 1, slamming everyone. How is that much better than someone in champ cheating? Because at this point, it might as well be. The other team has no chance. They cannot beat you. And while I enjoy playing against people that are better and learning from it and improving, it should be in the rank, right? Like, you should be playing people just above you so you learn and improve. You shouldn't be playing people that are literally 2,000 elo away from you. Well, that's too much.
Dude, I watched a very well-known YouTuber's video the other day, and I forgot, it's not somebody I normally watch, but it's a gameplay YouTuber. I want to say his first 5 kills, he had a different username on all of them.
Yeah.
Now, you can change your name every 35 days. Is it possible that that's maybe like 2 accounts where he changed his name? And that would explain, like, no. He's not putting out one video every 60 days.
No.
So, I mean, worst case scenario, we're talking 5 different accounts there that he was playing on to get those clips.
And we just say 10 placement games in all 5.
Yeah.
And we say that at least the first 5 of them, I assume it's a good player. So let's say it's someone who is capable of playing in like the top ranks all the time, every time, right? Through the placement games, you're not going to meet anyone until the 5th game or the 5th win that is like really a challenge, right? Unless you do it right at the start of the. And even then, placement games are good. They're necessary. There's a reason we only have them every season reset, because if you have them too often, people never get to settle in and play against the people they're. But this is the big important thing, is that matchmaking isn't about getting as high as you can. It's about playing against people of similar. So once you get up there, you're supposed to damn well play there, right? To give you a better experience, you play against people that are equally as good as you. If we want a ranking system, you have to respect that and then play in the rank that you belong in. I am not against a champ playing with a friend who just came home from the army or whatever and hasn't played his games, and now you play the tin placement with them. I don't consider that boost. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. But if the intention is, yo, Jimmy and Jeff and blah blah, get on your other accounts and let's play your tin placement matches so my main can get more elo because we play against worse people, I think that is extremely scummy.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's also an argument to be made that it is against TOS to do that, because you are
manipulating the matchmaking. You're manipulating the matchmaking.
Yeah, and that's scummy. While you might be having fun, you're doing it at the detriment of someone else's, and that shouldn't be the goal, right? Hopefully, if you're good enough to make it to the higher elo, or even if you're gold or if you're silver or whatever, you'd prefer to play against people of similar skill.
Yeah.
Right. But we do have people that go out of their way to seek basically unranked quality of gameplay, but in ranked, so they can put it in. I know that there's a few out there where if you were to like check the ones they play against, some of them are gold, some of them are diamond, some of them are champ, some of them are silver, right? So maybe some of the clips are from unranked, and then most of the clips from ranked are, maybe captured over 2 weeks or something like that, and they're thrown in here and there, and they're too good players to do that. But we have this culture now in Siege where if you aren't getting a one-tap headshot every 2 seconds in your video, like people are not they're not gonna watch, right? Like there needs to be a champion icon up in the top left. There needs to be black eyes on an R4C, and it needs to be on coastline with a blurry background. If you do that, you make the video 10 minutes. You put 3 ads into it, and you play on 7 different barcode names while doing it. Then you'll get some watch time.
Yeah.
But like once you've made 100 of them, it's very difficult to tell one from the other, right? Like I have the issue with the only thing I upload is stream highlight videos. So like that's just whenever something good happened on stream, or damn, sometimes it's just when I messed up, because that's honestly hilarious.
Yeah.
But that'll be everything from unranked to casual to ranked, right? Like it's just highlights from the stream, nothing more, nothing less. But stuff like that, if you were to rebrand it and put a champion thing next to it and just pretend like that was it would just do better. And
Yeah.
even though people would notice it, they'd call it out in the comments. Doesn't matter, because it would still do better.
Yeah. Once they've clicked on it, the damage is
Yep.
done.
Yep.
Or I guess, yeah, you've received the benefit. So, all right, let's.
Exactly.
Are you okay with wrapping it up here?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. All right. So, guys, I guess it's been a little crazy lately with travel. I said in the last episode, my kids are on a hybrid schedule. So I think according to plan, we won't have an episode next week, but we'll be back the following week. But stay tuned. Again, we're flexible on this. It's a matter of if something hot drops that we want to talk about, then we're going to try and make it happen. But certainly appreciate everybody's patience as we try to work through the issues that exist in today's world. But thanks everybody for the support. Really appreciate it. And I guess with that said, we will see you on the next one.
Peace.